else around us to pieces for that inch. Yeah. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the fucking difference between winning and losing.
Hell, you could say that 10,000 times and it still wouldn't be enough.
It fires me up, man.
I love it. Say it one more time.
Shake and bake!
Doesn't that feel good?
Yeah, it rhymes. They're both verbs.
It's awesome.
Shake and bake indeed. Welcome back, folks, to the latest, greatest episode of the Shaving Points podcast. My name is Quentin Crisco. You can find me on Twitter at BuckHisStats. I'm joined here, as always, by my co-host, Jaden May. How you doing today, Jay?
Doing fantastic. We got a big one for you tonight, and we're on time tonight. So look at us being good. You can find me on Twitter at JMay56. Make sure to follow us on all the socials. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Reddit, YouTube. Shaving Points. Come give us a like. Come give us a follow. Come interact with the boys. Putting out model pics every day for college basketball nearing the end. But tonight, we're going to start off with a interview from Notre Dame assistant offensive line coach Chris Watt, and then afterwards we'll jump into a little Final Four talk for you guys.
That is former Glenbard West hitter, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and Los Angeles, at the time it was San Diego, but Los Angeles Chargers, great, Chris Watt.
Not to be confused.
Welcome to the show, Chris.
Watt.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to start this off with a little story. Go all the way back to had to be 2003, 2004. You know, I was a pretty solid sized kid. And I was in gym class. We were doing wrestling, and the gym teacher matches me up with Chris here. And I'm like, okay, we're he's not that much bigger than me. I can handle this. And I'll tell you, this is the first time in my life I ever realized I might not be a D1 athlete. Was wrestling this man.
Yeah, everybody has that moment of realization in their life that maybe I'm not as good as I think I might be.
Yeah, and I think there was only four of us that would just wrestle each other. There was only four of us in our weight class that would just go back and forth.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was we were like the four bigger kids. But yeah, welcome to the show, Chris. We're glad to have you on.
I appreciate you guys having me.
So we're going to start off with a few questions here. Now, we both grew up in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and I know I was a huge Bears fan growing up. And I know this because Facebook had a quiz where you could do Chicago Bears history on it. And I was second. If all of my Facebook friends, I had at least 10, so a lot. But
tons.
Second of all those friends in Chicago Bears trivia, and I saw who was first, and it was you. And you had me by a country mile. Beaten. I gave up because I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to catch this guy. So one of the things I'm always curious about with guys who actually go on to play in the league and see the business side of it and live it day to day is what happens to that fandom. Are you still a Bears fan to this day, or is it something that's kind of waned a little bit as we've seen the other side of it?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I'm still a fan. But it does change when you're in the sport. I think the more you go on playing and then obviously coaching now, you become more of a fan of the sport itself and what's going on than a specific team, especially I think at the professional level. In college, I think you kind of, just because of, you grew up as an 18-year-old, I think that fandom, I mean, at least for me, has always been real strong with Notre Dame, but I would say professionally, it just changes a little bit. Because growing up, I mean, my family, we'd go to Platteville up in Wisconsin every year to go to Chicago Bears training camp. We go to the convention downtown. we'd do all those things that, avid Bears fans would do. And shoot, I feel like I knew everyone on the team at that time. I mean, everyone down from like the undrafted free agents in
right.
like things like that were
the guys fighting for roster spots.
Yeah. I mean, even the coaches too. I remember another Glenbard West graduate, Rob Boris, seeing him at Bourbonnais at the time. And I think I shouted "Go Hitters" at him and all those things. And then obviously now it's, I've met him a couple of times on the professional level, both as a player and as a coach now. So I think, your life becomes more intertwined with what you're doing. And, you still love and have a, deep passion for the sport, but kind of just the surface level fandom fades a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. It's almost like anything you go into professionally, it just becomes different than what you always had some thoughts about what it is, what it would be like, and once you actually do it, it was part of your everyday life.
Yeah, I always assume that once you get to that level, you just become more of like you said, of the game and like specific players, like the friendships you make. You end up cheering on like specific guys rather than the logo. That's what I always assumed.
Yeah, I think too. I mean, I think for everyone too, especially like when you're young in that profession as a player, like there still are those moments. I think for everyone where there's a little bit of being not starstruck, but like, wow, I was 5 years old when I watched this guy play, and now I'm suiting up.
I mean,
either way, we're on the same field.
You walked into the field with Phillip Rivers, who is a legend by the time you even got there. So, I mean, with his dad jokes and his just ridiculousness that you see on TV every week. So, yeah, I'm sure. And then Antonio Gates there in the huddle with you. That's got to be a little.
Oh yeah,
a little moment,
a little bit of a shock. Like, am I supposed to be here right now?
I'm pretty sure Rivers was a backyard football quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. It might have been Drew Bledsoe, but it almost feels that way from like an age standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he was.
Yeah. But I mean, those guys, like, I mean, I think the one thing about both those guys too is just how great of teammates they were. Like they didn't. I mean, they obviously had the background and the the longevity to have the ego if they wanted to, but very surprisingly, I mean, not surprising, but just I guess from the outside you would never think, but some of the most humble guys have been around.
Oh yeah, Antonio Gates is always one of those guys that I always thought like. Wasn't he still playing like up to like 2 or 3 years ago? And every single year, it's like when somebody needs a tight end, I'm like, oh, Antonio Gates just going to step in and give it another go.
Yeah, he still gets the job done. Surprisingly, for how old he got, he would still get open.
Yeah.
So did Rivers ever ask you to babysit?
Never asked me to babysit. But man,
he only had like 17 kids at that point.
Yeah, I mean a lot of credit to him and his wife.
Takes a
for real. That's a full-time job in itself.
Oh yeah.
So who did you personally like model your game after growing up and like through high school and even into college? Who were the guys that you kind of looked up to and watched film on and kind of tried to replicate?
Yeah, I mean, I think growing up, number one, I think just in that era, Brian Urlacher, from a linebacker, I mean, just as a player standpoint, how he played the game. Obviously, I didn't have the speed or those types of things to play that position. So, I mean, the guys that, especially like when
it's like the tenacity and the hustle and finishing mentality,
all those things. And I think obviously he was a star player in Chicago, and Monsters of the Midway. Like it was him, Warwick Holdman, Roosevelt Colvin, those three guys. I would really say from an offensive line perspective, Olin Kreutz was one guy. The way, how he played the game, the tenacity. And then
talk about a guy who finished his blocks.
Yeah.
Always finished.
Yeah, the mentality of which he played with, and then the leadership ability that he had on the field. And then, when I got to college and I was able to just have more access to film, where you're actually able to watch, from a offensive line perspective, from the back angle.
Right.
Marshall
don't understand
Yanda
it.
from the Ravens was
Yeah.
was a guy I really liked to watch. Just play with unbelievable technique. He played the game the right way, had that mindset of trying to finish his blocks, not letting the guy get to the quarterback. Yanda he was a guy that I always wanted to meet and wanted to play like. And we kind of had a similar build too. We're both, a hair under 6'3", 100 pounds. So he was a guy I was like, all right, well, if this guy's my size, I have a shot at least.
Yeah, it kind of gives you the blueprint. That's all it was. I always liked Jeff Saturday growing up because I was like 6'1", and he was just one of the smaller guys in the league. And I was always like, if I'm gonna make it, like I gotta play like Jeff Saturday. He was always like a guy I loved to watch growing up.
Oh yeah, he's fun too.
Yeah,
he's got some good. I feel like he has some good like YouTube clips of him getting after it, like with Peyton against like the Texans.
Yeah, him and Peyton, their back and forth was always incredible.
Yeah.
So were there any lessons that you learned kind of through, say, middle school, high school that you carried forward with you, like, and who you learned them from to your time as a pro and then your time now as a coach that is something that you really just keep harping on and keep thinking is a really key point that you want your guys to know?
I think the one thing, I always, regardless of being, a bigger guy in high school, I kind of always viewed myself, especially when I got to like the recruiting world, as being like an undersized guy. So I always, my dad and my uncle always kind of talked about just being able to play with an edge, and playing within that edge. Now I think like the way I played, it was a little bit reckless at times. Like I used technique, but my game was trying to be a little reckless. That's kind of how I played.
Yeah.
But I think obviously like trying to outwork your opponent in the off season was a big thing that I learned. And I learned that from the guy I'm working under right now, Harry Heastand, who I actually played for my last 2 years at Notre Dame. And he would end a lot of meetings talking about, when you're getting underneath the bar, benching, squatting, like that's the 3 technique from Ohio State. Like he would use another opponent. So I think having that like inner fuel and thinking about it that way is something that I've tried to carry on in my professional life too.
Yeah, that was one thing I always enjoyed doing as well. Was always like think about what your opponent's doing right now. Like if you're doing 6 reps, they're doing 7 reps, whatever it is.
Yeah,
I can hear the high school coaches yelling it right now.
Yeah, and I would say,
but it's true. Yeah. It's a way to train. It's the way to go about it.
That's a good way to find motivation. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, Q, Coach Hatlett, he's one of the best. I mean, at least in Illinois, but I'd say one of the best high school coaches in the country from what he demands. And I think that helped me out a lot too. It wasn't, you could have good plays, but it was never about like those plays. It was about being dominant. And I think being able to challenge guys, like learning how to challenge guys is something that I'm continuing to learn and grow as a coach. Like, how do you get the most out of guys and find something that really motivates them to want to be their best? So,
yeah. Now you mentioned Harry Heastand. I'm curious, what is his relationship meant to you as from when you first met him as a player to how he's helped you as a coach, and what has that relationship meant to you and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it's meant the world to me. Like I talked about, like Chad Hatlett, like he's one, and Harry Heastand, like those guys mean a lot to me. I think from Chad Hallett's standpoint, getting me ready for the next level, which was college, and then I played for Harry for my last 2 years, so my senior year and my fifth year here, and just the way he was able to challenge you to be your best on and off the field. He would demand it, and he knew how to. He just knew how to reach each and every guy in that room. Now going forward, like even after I was done playing, he's someone that stay in touch, reach out to you. He'd watch film for you, give you different tips and reminders. And then as I've switched over to this coaching world, my first year in 2020, when I decided to get out of the business world, I called him, and he was actually out of football, pretty much retired. He was done playing and still living in South Bend. So I was able to meet up with him, once or twice a week, and we'd talk ball, watch film. He kind of give me insight from a coach's perspective. So he's always really been that mentor for me, both as a player and now as a coach. So I'm able to see it every day, what it looks like, how to work in this profession. So it's a real blessing to be able to do that.
Yeah, I've always heard such good things about Coach Easthand, and what obviously being a Bears fan, you hear it from Olin Kreutz all the time, but you hear it from other guys too, and they just think the world of him. So I was curious to hear, as someone who is coming up under coaching under him, and kind of where his guidance has helped you. And I'm really glad he brought up Coach Hetlett, because I wanted to put some questions around him, because that he was such an integral part of our lives from when I actually knew you better and you knew me better. And I wasn't sure what exactly to put into a question, but I wanted to kind of show him some respect there on it. And so I'm very glad that you brought that up. And you mentioned kind of spending some time in the business world after your playing career, and then making this move over to coaching. So after, kind of, what was that like? How difficult was it to transition from playing back to the coaching side, or from playing to the business world, and then from the business world to a completely different lifestyle as a coach, and how demanding that can be?
Yeah. I would say when I first finished up, it was 17, right before training camp was starting with the Saints. And at that point, I really just couldn't play anymore. Like I couldn't get through, multiple practices in a row. And, I didn't have the seniority to be able to just play on Sundays. Not that I would have been, worth anything, just with knee and shoulder, not, being able to do the job. But so from that perspective, just knowing I couldn't do it anymore, it was tough, but, it was like, that's kind of what it was. I would say that second year after I was done was tough, just because you missed the game. I think that first year out, it's
kind of relieved.
It's exciting. It's a little nerve wracking, but it is exciting trying to figure out what you want to do next. But that second year, there's times where you're like, all right, what do I do?
What do I do now?
What do I do next? And so the first thing I did, I got into the NASCAR world in business development. Didn't work for NASCAR, worked for almost like a broker, as like a third party, between like a team and a brand. So I worked with Stewart Haas Racing, Clint Boyer, and NASCAR, there's any sponsor that you want. So we were working with it was almost like a foundation that wanted to just get their name out there, called One Cure. So handled that, did that for about 10 months, wanted something a little more structured, got into the broker side of insurance at Aon. Great job. But for me, every day was just very similar. There wasn't anything too exciting. There was parts of the job that were exciting, but just nothing to really, get me.
Yeah, just same thing over and over, basically.
Same thing over and over again. And then in
January,
it's
so different from a player or a coach, where it's you're constantly on to the next thing and on to something new and trying to scheme something, trying to think through a scheme or a plan, where as opposed to, like you're saying, the business world, just kind of the same thing every day sometimes.
Yeah, and there's positives, I think, for both. I don't think there's anything wrong with the business world either. You can make, I mean, there's things that are exciting in that area too. And then I think, January of 20, really before COVID hit, I had an opportunity that was brought up to me, and I'd been thinking about it for a little while, and I kind of just thought, I don't want to regret not taking this opportunity to go back to my alma mater and help out in some way, see if I enjoy doing it. And then I can always go back and do something else if I want to.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. I was really glad I did what I did, because I got to be outside every day still. Obviously, there's restrictions, but I'm glad I made the decision at the time I did, because it seemed like a lot of people kind of were doing something similar. They were trying to do something new, figure out, maybe it's not the status quo what they were used to.
Yeah, in a large part, COVID is the reason I started writing about football and we started this podcast. So
yeah,
absolutely.
Here we are.
Yeah.
All comes full circle.
So let's talk a little bit about the draft here. Can you kind of walk us through what it was like on draft day, like just kind of the whirlwind of it all, and especially being a guy who, grew up in the Midwest, played college in the Midwest, and then suddenly you're moving all the way out to sunny California, and just kind of what that was like, what were the challenges of it, what was awesome about it, just the whole shebang.
Yeah. Well, that year, for whatever reason, as soon as you were drafted, like you were on a flight the next morning to whatever destination you were at. Now guys usually have like a week before they report for any type of rookie mini camp. So it was definitely a quick turnaround. Draft night, going into the day, I thought there was an opportunity. I was going to be in Cleveland, just from conversations in the morning with a couple of people on that staff in that organization. And in San Diego at the time, they had been in constant communication with me throughout the whole process. I would say going into the day though, I wasn't sure if I was going to get drafted on day 2. Really talking with my agent, it was, there was probably only about 7 teams that had a 3rd round grade on me. Everyone else was, between like a 4 and a 5. So there was no
crazy.
Yeah, no guarantee. So, I didn't have like a big party or anything like that. It was just my family and I at my house in Glen Ellen watching it and just kind of enjoying the draft, because it's fun to watch too. It's good television. And then
Q and I worked together at that time. And we were just sitting on the pool table. We were working as bouncers at a bar, just sitting at a pool table, just like watching the names go. Just not doing our jobs.
Yeah.
I became a Chargers fan that night. A little part of me.
Yeah. And I would say, that first year, the part that's difficult about it is, especially for rookies, is you really don't have any time off from, training camp the previous year in college. Like you go through the season, and then you're getting right into training for the combine. And combine training's a lot different than what you would normally do in an off season. You're almost trying to win like a beauty pageant, trying to become a sprinter, trying to just do things you wouldn't normally train like as a offensive lineman. So
you're telling me running a sub 4.8 40 isn't that important for an offensive lineman?
Just the first 10. Just the first 10.
What if you got to pull?
For me, I pulled my quad on my 40. So I was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. For me, the hard part coming out, I had a knee injury at the end of my college career that I didn't have to get surgery on, but I had to miss the athletic portion of the combine. So I did all that at my pro day.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So when you're at the combine and you're doing your verbal interviews, what was like the craziest or like just most ridiculous question you were asked?
There was some questions to like kind of catch you off guard. I wouldn't say I was asked anything super ridiculous. Like one thing was,
Did you
like,
get? Are
hey,
you the
like,
cat or a dog?
yeah, yeah, stuff like that. I mean, my question was like, all right, you get a brick. Like, how many things can you do with this brick? So, like, anything,
So
anything.
were they looking for a number or for you to make a list?
They gave you like 30 seconds to do it. So just
Yeah.
you make a list and whatever you gave them. I don't know how that helps, but I guess
Yeah.
it teaches you to think on your feet a little bit.
I guess I don't know what that really gets you, but
Yeah,
that's an interesting one.
Another question, like we were going through, you talk about your offense in college. So we were talking about that, everything football related. And then the last question was, all right, we're at a bar. What are you ordering drink wise? So, I mean, usually the safest bet there for an offensive line is just some beer brand.
Yeah.
So, no way, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you already have an agent at that point, or so do they like kind of work with you on those like specific questions, or is it just like they want you to be like think on your feet about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so the place I trained at IMG down in Florida, the same place that's like the ridiculous high school campus. And they had a really good program down there. It's not the same as it used to be, but like your whole day would be planned out from you'd work out usually twice. And then usually in between those workouts, they'd have some breakout sessions. So there would be like one day you'd be doing everything for the Wonderlick. Another day you'd be practicing in front of your peers and maybe a couple other, like they'd hire coaches to kind of help you through that process. So you'd talk through football with them.
Yeah.
We had improv class once a week. So
Okay.
they had weird stuff like that to get you thinking.
Kind of get you comfortable.
Get you ready for the weird questions.
Exactly.
Very good.
The improv class, that's interesting.
Yeah. And it was taught by, the year I did it, it wasn't taught by this person, but it was normally taught by a guy who he was like like a camp instructor in American Pie. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, like it was a random dude who would do it.
Very good.
Yeah. So once you got to the NFL, I think I read that you cross trained some before the combine too for potential move to center, and you actually you did play some center in the NFL, I believe. How difficult was that as a guy who played offensive tackle in high school mostly, played offensive guard in college, and then had to go be the guy doing the line calls and suddenly snapping the ball and just all the timing differences that it takes to be a center? What did you do to prepare for it, and how difficult was it?
Yeah, because when my freshman year, spring at Notre Dame, they were trying to make me a center, and I just had awful back-to-back days doing it. So it was kind of like, you're never doing this again. But obviously, the situation that I was being put in, I wasn't going to be a first-round pick, so I was going to have to know all three of those interior spots. So
is that pretty common that guys who aren't like locked in as an early pick at offensive guard, they try out some center? And I'm not that surprised that you try both sides, but center is one that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, because I think and it's a little bit different now because the rosters have expanded a little bit, but you usually only carried 7 or 8 linemen on a roster, right. And then game day probably only 7 would dress. So you really need one of those backup guys to be able to play all three. And really like the biggest thing was I just snapped every day. I think the hardest thing about center is being able stepping with your snap, while you're snapping, and getting that foot on the ground quickly. The thing that's great about center is you usually have help, or you're helping someone most of the time. So
yeah,
you can get away with you can have help on some of those quicker nose tackles or 3 techniques.
Yeah, usually double or blocking down. So
yeah,
it's always nice.
Yep.
Who was the toughest nose tackle or 3 technique or any position that you had to practice against or play against? Like who were the guys that you just you didn't feel like you were going to have a good day when you had to go up against them?
The one in I played him actually like 4 years in a row. But Aaron Donald, he was at Pittsburgh.
Was he good?
He's all right. He's an all right player.
Urban Meyer doesn't know who that guy is, right?
Yeah, that
wasn't Chris saying that. That was 100% the Shaving Points podcast. To be clear.
But he was like when Aaron, like when they first started playing him, they'd only put him in on third down situations. He was still a really good run defender, but for whatever reason, they didn't play him that way at Pittsburgh his first year. And they finally, I guess, realized it, even though everyone that was playing against him realized that he was a hell of a player.
Good.
I would say now he's a lot better than what he was in college.
Yeah.
But
best player in the league, probably.
Yeah,
I mean, his hand speed is just ridiculous. Like how quickly he gets into you and just moves your hand. You can't touch him. It's wild to watch him.
Yeah,
he's good.
So I'm a huge Cowboys fan, like my whole life. So my favorite player in the league for a while now has been Zach Martin, and he seems like a great guy from outside looking in. But you got any good college Zach Martin stories for us?
Oh, shoot. Well, yeah, he was actually just here this past weekend. But incredible person. I mean, he's the same guy he was in college. Like nothing's really changed for him. You know, he's still one of my best friends. From playing here. Yeah, he's the one thing with him is that was always really funny is he's so consistent with his routine. Like he'll do the same thing each week. And like in college, he would always get taped like 3.5 hours before practice. Like, so he'd just be sitting there with
taped up,
hands taped, ankles taped. And he'd just be, just sitting there because that's what he would do to get ready. Yeah. And shoot, there's plenty other funny stories too about him.
Yeah.
Just trusting the process.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whenever he got switched over to tackle last year, like in the middle of the game, and you just like saw just how ridiculously like just talented he is anywhere on the field. Like,
yeah.
Love watching that guy play.
So now that you're on the coaching side, let's talk a little bit about actually assessing players and like what do you look for in O-line recruits and guys that you're considering for coming to wherever it is you're coaching, or guys that you are coaching and you want to what is the key factors that you look for in offensive linemen?
Yeah, well, I think the first, like when you're just watching them on film, you're trying to evaluate like whether it's like bend, balance, and feet. So that's what you're trying to evaluate initially on film, really like their athletic ability before you're able to see them in person. So obviously you want someone that can, get underneath the defender with good leverage, especially like those bigger guys that can do it. You're seeing how I think the biggest thing with offensive linemen that makes, separates people is the balance, being able to, and when I talk about balance, it's really the ability to recover when you're put into a bad situation, which is sometimes hard to evaluate in high school kids just because, they're going against players that are much, usually inferior than them.
Right. They don't end up in a lot of bad situations until they start facing more commensurate talent.
Exactly. And then feet, which, which is good, but a lot of these high schools are running the spread, up tempo, passing offense. So you're able to see a lot of these guys in pass rushing situations. So that's all great. I think after that, try to get an evaluation from their head coach. So you're really trying to figure out how tough this kid is, and trying to get some other people's perspectives on that besides just your own and how you see it. And then I think talk to the kid, see if he's engaged, see if he loves football from not just, I love like hitting people. Like you ask them questions about, who won the Super Bowl, who's your favorite player, things like that. Because I think just when you get to the college level and and above, if you really don't have that love for the game, there's nothing that's really gonna strive you to become better, in my opinion. Like there's got to be something else there besides just high school football that you just like. You just like what you were doing there. Like there has to be something else.
You gotta have passion for it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you're trying to find all these things. Obviously, you don't get all of it in one sitting, one phone call, but it's something over time that you're trying to evaluate with these kids.
Yeah. I mean, 18-year-olds, that could be tough.
Yeah, it
17-year-olds.
is. Some guys don't want to talk.
Yeah.
So now, when you say bend, would you mind describing that a little more? Because that's something that I see on so many draft profiles, and I read about an offensive lineman, but it's something that's rarely described anywhere. So I'm curious to hear kind of what you mean by that.
Yeah. So I think when you're looking at their bend, well, first you just look at how they operate in their stance. Are they able to move efficiently out of that stance? And if they're not, is it because their stance is messed up, or is it because they're tight in the lower back? And which is something that you can tell pretty quickly. I think if there's like a arch in their back when you see them come off, that usually means there's some type of tightness. They might be a little, like I guess you would call on your toes, like a waist bender.
Yeah. It's funny as you say that. I'm thinking, man, freshman year in football camp, I think I did both of those things. I had a tight back and a poor stance.
Yeah.
Wrong all over the place.
Oh, I know. And then you're watching that second level of the block. So like when they get up to the second level, do they have the ability to drop their hips and run through on contact? Like, do they have that ability, or like when they get there, are they just
getting in the way, or are they exploding through?
Bending at the waist, putting their head down.
Yep. I know I'm trying to do it with like hand motions right here.
Yeah.
It worked. Let's do more hand motions to get people to watch on YouTube more.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then, so when you're looking at guys, what are kind of the traits that you consider to be teachable, like stuff that you think you can coach a guy up for, versus traits that are more natural and not non-teachable? You either have it or you don't.
So I think technique's obviously very teachable. It can be learned. Some guys pick it up better than others. I think a lot of that piece is getting guys to believe in what you're teaching and have them believe in their ability to do it. I think some of the things that are non-teachable are like innate ability to stick your head into blocks. I think you might be able to build it over time, but just from my experience so far, guys that don't do it right away always seem to have trouble really getting to that point of wanting to crave contact.
The guys who really enjoy it versus the guys who are kind of hoping it doesn't happen that badly.
Yeah. So it's you can still build mental toughness, physical toughness, but the innate just throwing your hat into the block, that's something that I've yet to see change over time.
Be taught.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're timid, they're always timid.
Yeah. Interesting. So with all that being said, let's talk through a few of the guys that you've coached. So last year you were the offensive line coach over at Tulane. And you had first of all, I guess let's talk about that. You had a flurry of a way down there. What was kind of the process that sent you down there?
Yeah. So I was at Notre Dame at the time. And my former offensive coordinator that was here was down at Tulane. Their O-line coach left for another opportunity. Had the opportunity to interview, and I actually got down there spring practice number 3. So that was a really quick turnaround. I got there Friday afternoon, and I was on the practice field the next morning, still trying to learn the offense, still trying to learn the game. So
what's going on.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, it's a great city, New Orleans.
Yeah.
Great city.
We were just there a couple of weeks ago.
Were you?
Yeah. Well, we were in Biloxi, Mississippi, so
Yeah.
about an hour
Yeah.
East of there.
Yeah, not too far.
I stayed one night in there. It was a
Yeah.
nice little town.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. I still have a house there. I'm waiting to sell. So.
Oh
Oh yeah.
you rent it out and go hang out for a weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So at Tulane, you coached this fellow named Corey Dublin. Can you tell us a little bit about him as he's coming into the draft process here and kind of preparing for it?
Yeah, Corey's he's a local New Orleans guy. Went to a private high school around there. Actually, kind of throughout this, in the last few months, we've Zoomed just to kind of get him ready for some questions. His pro day. They actually have their pro day next week, so we got one more session until just to feel like we're ready for when he gets rolling. But Corey's he actually might. This isn't fact checked, but he might have the most starts in the history of NCAA football. He started his first 4 years at Tulane, and then he got that extra COVID year.
So, that's right.
And he never got hurt. So I think he started like 61 games, 62 games.
That's a lot. Yeah, I actually have a theory about this year's draft because it's in my years of following the draft, it's gotten much more in depth the last probably 2 years. But I just don't remember ever seeing a class with this much depth in it. And I think that it's because of that extra COVID year that guys got. There were so many guys that waited, and last year's class was a bit more watered down, leading to this one just having so many guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
So that's all I'm seeing for guys that are coming into this draft from Tulane or Notre Dame. Is that right? Am I missing anyone at Notre Dame?
No, yeah, we had a lot of offensive linemen the prior year ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so y'all are bringing back basically the whole line, aren't you?
From last year, yeah, pretty much. The only one is the right guard, who's actually he's in the draft, but he was a transfer, so I never got to coach him.
Okay. Then let's talk a little bit about these guys who are kind of looking for draft position in 2023 and looking to kind of build their profile. Starting off at Tulane, you got Sincere Haynesworth, who, according to PFF, is a very good center. Now, I don't completely trust PFF's grades on offensive line, especially, but that's all I've got to work with right now, so I'm just going with it.
Yeah, it's like you trust those grades when they're good, and
right when they support my narrative, they're great. When they don't, they're trash.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you 100%. Sincere, he's a really athletic player, a little bit undersized. That's probably why he's at Tulane. He's in that 6'5", 6'1" range, but really long arms, very athletic, very powerful, strong. He power cleans 385. So he's a really impressive from that standpoint. The other thing that I think separates him is super smart player. I think he understands his body really well, like how to move out of his stance efficiently. So I think he'll definitely have an opportunity. I'm not sure if that means drafted or what, but he'll definitely have an opportunity next year.
Always love a smart center.
Yeah, and Joey,
yeah.
He was coming off an injury this past or the year prior, but he's healthy now. He's actually doing his 6th year there, so a lot of football in college. Has played a ton, 6'7", 300 pounds. You can't get enough of those smart, tough type players in the NFL. So he'll definitely have an opportunity as well.
Yeah, so he's got a pretty prototypical like tackle build at that kind of height and size. He's got to have a pretty big frame to be carrying that size.
Definitely.
And then looking over at Notre Dame, how about your guys' center Jarrett Patterson?
Yeah, Jarrett's he's played a lot of football here.
He's good.
The one thing with him is
I like watching him.
He's
Jayden's the show's college football expert more than I am. I focus more NFL.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure he had a pretty good PFF grade, but Jared's one of like the smartest offensive linemen in college that I've ever been around. Sees the game really well, slows down really well for him. I think part of that's like he was trained in high school really well at Mission Viejo in California. So that's really natural for him. Great leader. Again, strong player, and a guy that's just continuing to get better.
Yeah, so when I was watching Notre Dame this year, one thing I noticed is I don't know exactly how all your signs and calls work and everything, but to me it looked like he was basically calling the protection for the entire line every
Oh
time he
yeah,
walked up to the ball, and you don't really see that in college very often.
exactly. Yeah, he does a really nice job with that.
I mean, shoot, you get so many guys entering the NFL who haven't had great experience with it, and it's such a valuable thing to know how to do once you get there, I feel like.
Yeah, and every team's a little different too. Like in San Diego, when I was there, just having a veteran quarterback is huge for a whole offense. Um, Phil used to do the blitz protection like plan for the offense. So
Really?
normally that's what offensive line coaches, offensive coordinators will put together. He would do that for himself, knowing what he wanted to see. But he would make all the calls. He'd make your job really easy. Whereas there's some, and it changes every team's a little different. Some rely more on the center. But if you're a veteran quarterback, you're going to usually make all the decisions because it's kind of your butt back there. So
Right.
Yeah.
Trust
You've
yourself.
been in the league that long, you kind of have to
Picked up a few
call
things.
yourself. Yeah.
Definitely.
How about at offensive guard, Kane Madden?
Yeah. So he's the one who's he's going to the draft this year.
Oh, okay.
But he was I got to meet him since I've been back, but he was definitely a blessing for Notre Dame this year. Just to have another guy to come in and play. He did a really nice job at Marshall when he was there. But it was great for that line to have him this past year.
Okay. And then last up here I got for back to 2023 was Josh Lugg at offensive tackle.
Yep, another guy that's played a lot of football.
It's a great name.
Yeah,
It's a great
Josh
name.
Lugg from Pitt. But he's done a ton of really good things here. I've actually known him for a really long time. When I'd come back when I was playing, I think he was a freshman. So he's been in the program for quite some time. But he's a huge asset for the university and that group.
All right. Well, great stuff. I think Jayden had one final question for you, Chris.
Yeah, before we let you go, I know being a college football coach, you're always on the recruiting trail. And I was just going to see if you're willing to offer the first prospect for the 2039 class, and what kind of NIL opportunities are y'all offering with that? We've been looking around and we got some offers yet, but nothing's set in stone. So, I mean, we're willing to go Notre Dame.
Let's see what we can offer. That's the thing too. I can't get in trouble. I can't offer anything. That's the thing.
Well, no, yeah, I was. Yeah, I may have worded that wrong, but
I've
seen this baby. He's a natural.
Yeah, he's got the bend for sure.
We can figure something out. We'll figure something out.
Yeah, send him some merch and we'll get him rooting for the Fighting Irish early. My family would hate it. We're all Tech fans, but hey, whatever gets them to school.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chris. We really appreciate your time and you sharing it with us.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a great night.
We'll be cheering for you, man. You have a good one.
All right, folks. So that does it for our interview with the legend, Chris Watt. At this point, we need to go ahead and boost our Manscaped products. Right, Jayden?
Yeah. Their new. Are we doing this live or are we going the ad?
Roll the ad.
Okay, roll the ad.
Hey, Jayton, you excited?
Excited for what?
March Madness is here. Not everyone can have a perfect bracket, but you can have the perfect set of balls this tournament season with the sponsor of art of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have just launched their Ultra Premium Collection. Ultra Premium Collection to give you the total championship hygiene routine. After sweating out the games, make sure you lather up head to toe with this all-in-one skin and hair kit to have your body and balls smelling Final Four fresh. Join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code SHAVINGPOINTS for 20% off plus free shipping.
20% off and free shipping?
This is a Cinderella story you're not going to want to miss.
Yeah, guys, this stuff is fantastic. We got some free products from Manscaped, and they are absolutely amazing. Let me tell you, the new Lawnmower 4.0 is the perfect little tool to get you trimmed up and groomed up and ready to go for the March Madness season. Get you feeling clean, get you feeling fresh. And there ain't no other place to get this other than manscaped.com using code SHAVINGPOINTS. 20% off and free shipping worldwide when you use this code. You do not want to miss out on this exclusive offer. It's awesome. Keep your balls fresh. Keep your balls clean. You're going to love it.
Worldwide. Wide.
Yes, sir.
Wide.
The Ultra Premium Collection is awesome. The 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner is phenomenal on my beard. I use the lip balm every day.
The body wash and the shampoo conditioner is outstanding.
Yeah, I love the body wash. I love the way it smells.
My fiance loves the body spray too.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it.
Yeah. So can't say enough how much we love it. So make sure you go and Manscaped, use that code Shaving Points, get that 20% off, free shipping worldwide.
Wide.
All right. So our Peacocks.
You failed us. I knew model. I knew it was too good to be true. The model kept picking dogs, and they kept winning, and it was gonna end badly at some point.
But we got the win into the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
we did get that win.
Oh, I mean, nice. I'm still way up on March Madness from it all. So I mean, I can't be too upset. But you knew it was going to come to a reckoning at some point.
Yeah, the Elite Eight was kind of lackluster. I mean, favorites just dominated the entire Elite Eight, and now we have the Blue Blood Invitational. You got Coach K still waiting on his funeral. I thought it was going to be a long time ago. Then we got Jay Wright, probably the most consistent college basketball program in the last 25 years, I would say, with Villanova. You get Kansas, Bill Self, always there, always consistent. And then old Hubert coaching North Carolina up. It's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, I'm still so upset this isn't Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been Texas Tech if we would have got past Duke. I don't think we would have had any trouble with Arkansas. And then you'd have 2 first-year head coaches facing off in the Final Four. I think that's a better story than Coach K versus Hubert, but who am I to judge?
Yeah, so the model here likes Duke, unfortunately. Kind of likes them to cover, but definitely likes them to win. I'm rooting for North Carolina.
Yeah,
I'll probably do some parlays. With
the ceiling
Duke,
is the roof,
but the ceiling is always the roof.
Never forget that.
But yeah, I want to see North Carolina. I might try to sprinkle them to cover or something, or maybe try to figure something out. But I'll probably have Duke on a money line in a parlay somewhere.
Yeah. And then Villanova, Kansas. If Kansas plays like they did in the second half of Miami, there's nobody in the country that can beat them. But that's the only half this year. I mean, they have the backcourt, they have the front. I mean, they have the most talented team left, and if they put it all together, Kansas could go on a run. But Villanova is such a tough team. Jay Wright always going to coach his guys up. They did lose their best player. I don't know if the model's accounting for that in this matchup.
It is not. I have no good way to account for that, and also it is absolutely not. I did not even think of that until this moment.
Yeah.
So,
but Villanova's still Villanova. They're still going to play tough.
Yeah.
But
what was Wright's injury?
ACL, I think, or Achilles.
Okay, so there's no way he can play the championship.
No, he's out. No, yeah.
Okay.
I think he already had surgery.
Man, I might have to go against the model at that point and just like
scrap it all together.
Straight chalk parlay.
I still like Villanova to cover. I still like them catching the 4.5.
Yeah,
for the money line. But I mean, I'm going to be partial to the Big 12 too. So maybe put a future on Kansas to win, and then sprinkle Villanova money line.
Yeah, it's a solid choice.
Maybe run it that way. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I'm at this point, I'm hoping it's Villanova or Kansas win it all. I wouldn't mind North Carolina winning it, but anybody but Duke at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody.
We just don't really want to see Coach K win it all.
No, I mean, his All About Me retirement tour. Then he complains that people always want to take his picture, and I was like, well, that's what happens when you announce your retirement tour like 5 months before the season starts. And yeah, I mean, just never been a Coach K fan. Don't understand all the hype around it. It's kind of a dick. So between him yelling at other players and yelling at the student section and just making everything about himself, then acting like he's shocked and complaining when the media makes it about him and not the players. He's just an egomaniac, crazy man. So ready for him to leave, ready for him to lose, and let's just hope he doesn't win it on his way out the door.
We're all ready for him to lose and leave.
Yep.
So I just punched this into the model. If it is Kansas Duke in the final, it still likes Duke. It likes Duke even more. It's got it at 59% confidence.
That breaks my heart. But model did kind of get cold, so let's hope that it stays cold.
Well, honestly, let's hope that North Carolina just beats them.
Yeah, they can.
48% ain't a bad confidence here.
No.
For 45, but still, like that's like these games are all supposed to be tight. I usually didn't like in the regular season. I didn't bet stuff below 55% confidence. So like it's in no way a shoe-in.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping we have better games than we did in the Elite Eight. That's for sure.
Yeah, those are just brutal.
But that's gonna be about. That's about all I have for the Final Four. You want to talk a little NFL news?
Let's do it.
Bruce Arians gone.
Wait, did I miss this?
I texted it in the group chat right before we got on.
And then I missed it.
Yeah,
I was frantically getting ready.
Bruce Arians stepped down as the head coach. Todd Bowles will now be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce Arians will be assuming a front office position. So this I thought was to be expected because I think that was part of the reason with Tom Brady coming back. I think he was done running that Bruce Arians offense, but good for Todd Bowles.
It's going to be really interesting. Actually, no, it won't really be. I was thinking Byron Leftwich, but if Brady's still there, nothing really changes.
But now the offense is completely Byron Leftwich without Bruce Arians.
But it's still Tom Brady.
Yeah. But, I mean, that Bruce Arians offense kind of messed him up a little bit. I mean, even being Tom Brady, I mean, he was kind of asked to do some things that he can't do at 65 years old last year.
So was Bruce Arians.
He might be older. Who knows?
Man, I did not know that. I did not catch that. That's really interesting. The really interesting thing is that he's still in the front office, though.
Yeah, I thought he would have left completely, honestly. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I can pull it up real quick.
Yeah, that's just like it almost makes me think it's not about Brady if he's sticking around in the front office. If he was just gone, I would think it's a Brady thing.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder if he's just like over it. He doesn't want to grind another year.
Mm-hmm. Then,
but still wants another ring.
Yeah. So I just shared my screen. I'll get Cupcake to pull it up for us. But this was his. I spent the last 50 years of my life in the sidelines as a football coach for one another, blah, blah, blah. So why now? Simple answer is that I have accomplished more than I ever dreamed of. Then it just goes on and on. Focus on my family, give back to this incredible game. Not a whole lot of
pretty just generic talk.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah. So nothing too crazy. But basically, yeah, just saying that he is comfortable with what he's given to the game, and
interesting.
He's gone. So, yep, thought that was kind of expected, but still surprising that he stayed with the organization.
Yeah, very surprising to me. I guess not to you, but to me, I'm very shocked.
Well, there was just all the riff about like Tom Brady wanted to be traded and he didn't want to play with Bruce Arians anymore. And then they basically said, we're not going to trade you. And then, so that's why the whole retirement to begin with was kind of fraudulent, I always thought. And then,
well, so
like,
my
they're not going to trade me, so I'm going to come back the day before free agency starts, so everybody knows that like I'm still going to be here. So all my guys stick around and they don't jump ship.
Yeah. So my policy on everything Brady all off season has been don't believe any of it. So I've just kind of ignored a lot of the stuff about him being traded or like him and Arians or any of that. I've just kind of thrown it to the wayside because Tom Brady's a snake.
Yeah. And his wife's a witch.
A snake and a witch. What a match. No, I highly respect Tom Brady, but I do not believe anything his PR team puts out. So coming out soon on our website will be our draft document, which has scouting reports, links to more in-depth, and also links to more in-depth scouting reports from Zerline, the Draft Network, Pro Football Network, and I forget and Bleacher Report. And it also has fun facts for every player, all their combine and pro day stats, their injury history, their character issues, if they've ever had any arrests or anything like that are notable.
To their teammates' birthday parties.
That's the number one factor on there, actually. Mm-hmm. And then it'll have their average rank from about 9 different big boards of notable draft analysts, and it'll have a summary of those big board results and all sorts of fun stuff. So when that comes out, make sure to go check it out on our website. It's a lot of fun to play around with. I've been dumping days of my life into this thing, and it'll be on Google Sheets, just like a few of the other things I've put out in the last probably year. And it's a very handy tool for if you're writing about the draft, if you're watching the draft intently and want to know about a player quickly, want to find scouting reports quickly. That was actually, I started building this thing probably 4 years ago, and I've just been adding to it every year and just wiping out the players' names and data and restarting every year.
Yeah.
But I'm very excited to put it out, and I hope you all are excited to play around with it. What else has happened in the NFL this week?
Just pro days. Nothing too crazy. All the big name free agents are still available. Bobby Wagner still hasn't gone anywhere. Odell Beckham still hasn't gone anywhere.
The Bears missed out on their Lord and Savior Ryan Bates.
Yeah, Ryan Bates. Yeah, not a whole lot of Cowboys Twitter is just in absolute shambles, and everybody just losing their mind. And yeah, I can't even get on Twitter because people are just so ridiculous. So
I think that's about half the NFL teams right now.
yeah,
Like
I'm sure
there's no
I'm sure all the
news
teams are like
happening,
that.
and everyone's just like losing their mind over no news happening.
Yeah, the Chiefs are, and there's been reports that the Chiefs are trying to lock down a number one receiver, but they have not been linked to anybody or any team. So I don't know what that means. But in my mind, it's Justin Jefferson, because why would Justin Jefferson stay in Minnesota?
It's got to be DK.
Maybe I don't consider DK a number one guy though.
I do.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it might be DK. I thought Justin Jefferson just because like, are they going to pay him with?
I don't think he has any leverage to force himself out, to force his way out yet. But then again,
I don't think it'd be him forcing. I don't think it'd be him forcing.
Go ahead.
I don't think it'd be him forcing himself out. I think it would just be them selling high when receivers are going for an all-time high, and they need way more than what Justin Jefferson can offer them in the next 5 to 7 years. Like,
yeah, Kwesi Adolph-Mensah. I mean, he's a big analytics guy. So I mean, maybe, but like, analytics also says don't trade young receivers. So
yeah, I mean, they need a quarterback. I mean, they have Cousins for 2 more years, and then what? Like, they're good enough to where they're going to be in purgatory unless they just shred everything down to the bones. And if you're going to do that, you might as well sell right now on Justin Jefferson. But
the Vikings have been in purgatory since they were founded.
Yeah, but I mean, they're at least competing for the playoffs. I'm talking about purgatory where you're good enough to win 7 games every year, but you're definitely not good enough to make the playoffs. Definitely don't have any Super Bowl aspirations, but you're just good enough not to be able to like draft a quarterback. And I mean, I would still say they're playoff contenders right now, especially in the NFC.
Yeah,
like right this moment. But
yeah,
I mean,
just right now, Justin Fields is like the 8th best quarterback in the NFC.
Yeah,
maybe 7th.
Yeah,
I don't have the list in front of me, but it's shocking.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of talent in the NFC right now.
No, it's I think that's a big part why Brady came back, actually.
Yeah, I mean, his entire career in the AFC, like all the talent was in the NFC for the most part, and then he leaves the AFC, and the AFC loads up with talent.
Yeah. I saw something the other day that said the Packers have had the worst offseason in the NFL, and just made my heart warm.
I wish it was worse.
I always wish it was worse, but
yeah,
I'll take the small victories.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they have Aaron Rodgers, they'll be all right. And maybe the Lions are gonna be on Hard Knocks. That was news.
Oh, that's gonna be a show, man.
Dan Campbell.
I'm excited for that.
Yep. Jared Goff, second time on Hard Knocks, second appearance.
I want to see Dan Campbell just like shaking after his 18th cup of coffee.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be fun. And also the Lions are shopping the number 2 pick, so maybe they're not as high on Aiden Hutchinson as people say they are.
Man, I'd be shopping it if I were them.
Derek Stingley is now being mocked as low as mid to late 30s in some drafts. Big questions about injuries, so keep an eye on that.
So I wrote an article the last few days. It should be out tonight, tomorrow, something like that, trying to kind of calculate the biggest playmakers in the draft. And I did that by just looking at interceptions, tackles for stops, which means basically an unsuccessful play. They didn't get half of the yardage needed for a first down or better, or a first down if it's third down. And then like batted passes at the line of scrimmage, sacks, forced fumbles, that type of stuff, divided by their total snaps. And for Stingley, for most players, I just did 2021, but for Stingley, I did 2020 and 2021. And like, his stats are actually pretty good, even though he didn't play a lot. His stats on that, his stats on target rate, like he just wasn't really targeted. And his yards per catch, like he still put up pretty solid numbers, even not playing a lot. He just didn't have the home run plays like he did that first year.
Yeah. No, another thing I've been saying is NFL teams aren't nearly as high on Kyle Hamilton as the media is.
Well, if he would have ran a 4.55, they would be.
Yeah, but then you put on the film and he just flies.
I know the film doesn't match the testing there. There's a few guys like that every year, and sometimes they fall and someone's like a huge beneficiary, and sometimes they fall and whatever team takes them is like, why on earth do we take this guy? Yeah. I think Kyle Hamilton's going to be the former, not the latter on that. I think he's going to be a very good player. But
yeah, as long as they don't ever draft him. I mean, if he ends up in a blitz boy situation where he's picked 4 overall, I mean, it's hard to be a safety and live up to number 4 overall.
Yeah. Safety, I feel like safety is one of the most reliant positions on the field on the other positions for their production. And it's hard to be a game-changing safety when you don't have much talent around you.
Yep. Another news, Jameson Williams not working out at his pro day. No surprise there. He just tore his ACL in the college football playoffs. But he is expected to be running and being able to make cuts, do routes and stuff by the time the draft happens. So he may be ready for rookie training camp.
It seems like he will be.
ACL, which probably definitely helps his draft position, because originally whenever he tore it, they were talking late July by the time he'd get back on the field, and now he's already working out, jumping, running, but not running full 40s or anything like that. But the fact that he's already back out there, what has it been now, like 6 months since college football playoff? No, not even. That was early January.
No, not even.
Yeah, 3 months.
He's making good progress.
3 months.
There's some video. There are some videos out there of him doing some workouts, or it might have been rehab or something.
Yeah, he's jumping and light jogging, stuff like that.
Basically, from what I saw somewhere on Twitter, like one of the NFL docs or those accounts, there was some. They were basically saying that like there's still definitely imbalance there, like clear imbalance, but. Like, I mean, honestly, it's impressive that he's doing that much already.
Yeah. We're talking about an ACL tear like January.
Yeah.
It's not even April yet.
Yeah.
We're talking if he would have like tore it in the first week of the preseason, we'd be sitting like week 9 right now, like talking about maybe like a return in the playoffs.
Yeah. It's impressive. I mean, I got you. It's impressive as hell.
But he's one of those guys. He might be the first receiver off the board if he wouldn't have tore his ACL, and now he still might be the first receiver off the board.
So I've been seeing stuff about him dropping down now. There's going to be.
There's no
right now. There are like
any clear cut line about receivers in this draft.
No, that's
a lot of good ones.
That's what I was about to say. Right now, there's like 8 different prospects who like are being claimed as won't get out of the first round as wide receivers. And there's no way there are 8 teams taking wide receivers in the first round.
It just depends on who people like.
If
somebody has somebody as the highest graded wide receiver on their board, and then 5 go before them, and then they're picking at 27 or something. Our top receiver's still on the board and 5 have already gone. Like, you just never know. I mean, the year with CeeDee Lamb and Henry Ruggs and not Sutton, the Denver guy.
Judy.
Yeah. I mean, Ruggs went first, and then everybody's like, oh, shit. And then Judy went, and then Cowboys are sitting there at 17, and they're like, people are talking about CD going top 10. They're just like, well, we weren't going to take a receiver, but we're not going to pass on CD Lamb. Like,
yeah, guys fall every year. It's going to be interesting because some of the other depth and other like offensive tackle depth is ridiculous too.
Yeah, I mean it's all over the board. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if we see a lot of trades in the first round and people picking up like second and thirds.
Because like the situation that you said, it's going to work the other way too, where teams are like, all right, well, we said we were going to take this receiver who's probably number 2 or number 3 on our board right now,
but we don't
because this offensive tackle has fallen this far, and he's number 1 by far. Like, I mean, it's going to be a fun draft. I'm very excited.
I've seen a combination of like 65 players projected in the first round.
Yeah, it's looted. Like I think 330 players in this document I have right now, and you know what I used to make it? Top 200 player big boards.
Yeah.
So there are 330 different players on these top 200 big boards of like, that's only 3 different draft analysts, I think, who I've used to build it.
Yeah, it's insane. Just talent everywhere.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about the other day, but somebody's going to like build a dynasty out of this draft.
Yeah. This is going to be like that. Like for someone, it's going to be like the 49ers drafts or the Seattle drafts when Scott McLaughlin was there, like when they just like completely loaded up and got so many stars.
Got 7 starters and 5 Pro Bowlers out of one draft. Like,
yeah.
The crazy thing is that like one of these quarterbacks is like historically speaking, like one of them's got to hit. Like rarely does not one single like hit come out of a quarterback class.
There have been a few drafts I can think of.
Yeah, I mean it happens, but I mean more
like did anyone come out of the Geno Smith draft? I don't think anyone did. There was like Geno and EJ Manuel, I think, and
there was 3 or 4. Was that the Zach Mettenberger year? And
yeah, I think so.
Jake Locker.
Yeah. Or no, that was a different one. The Jake Locker one was actually a pretty solid QB class.
Was that the Jameis year? Was Jake Locker?
No, I think that was longer ago than that. That was like 2012 or something.
That was Blaine Gabbert year. I think. Blaine Gabbert.
No, I think it was 2012. I don't think it was Blaine Gabbert. It was because the Blaine Gabbert year was not a good QB class.
No.
But the one that Locker came out in was a really good QB class.
Yeah. We haven't had a QB bust class in a long time.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Who was good in the Jameis one?
I mean, Kirk Cousins is still a viable starter.
He wasn't in that class, though. He was in the RG3 class.
Jameis Mariota.
I don't know if anyone actually came out of that class like
was that,
in really good That was 2015. I don't know if because 2016 you have Dak.
Yeah.
2017 you got Mahomes and Watson.
Yeah.
And of course Mitchell Trubisky.
Amari Cooper, Todd Gurley, Melvin Gordon, Marcus Peters, Byron Jones, Tyler Lockett. Yeah, that might have been the last time we saw Stephon Diggs in the 5th. Good Lord. Darren Waller in the 6th. Trent Brown in the 7th. Yeah. No notable QBs. Yeah, that was
2015 was the last complete bust.
But there were some dudes in that draft, though.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, maybe this one ends up being like that. I still like Malik Willis.
I like Malik Willis a lot. And, I mean, I think the kid from Pitt can do something. Kenny Pickett.
Man, Pickett reminds me a lot of Trubisky watching him play.
But, I mean, I think Trubisky could have been good in the right system.
I agree with that. But Trubisky's got bigger hands.
Hand size doesn't matter. Ask any girl you know. Size doesn't matter. But let me
No, I agree with you. I think Pickett has potential. I'm very in between on Pickett. I'm very just in the middle.
I like the Ole Miss quarterback if he ends up in the right spot.
Yeah, Corral needs to go to the right spot. I think there's
a bunch of guys with
maturity questions with him,
or high ceilings.
Mm-hmm.
Very low floors, though.
Well, so actually, I mean, I think Willis is the only guy whose ceiling is really up there.
I'll put Corral way up. I think his potential's through the roof.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time with him.
Before this season started, I'd put Sam Howell with one of those guys where like the ceiling is the roof coming out of UNC, but he hasn't. He did nothing his entire career to ever like elevate his game.
Yeah, I just don't. I always have a hard time with QB prospects who I can't get a good feel for. Yeah, and this whole class, except for Malik Willis, are guys who I just cannot get a good feel for.
Yeah, Malik Willis, like I just don't understand why I didn't stay at Auburn. It's like, and why he went to Liberty, like all the talent in the world's there, but it's like you couldn't go somewhere. But I mean,
yeah, it's a bit of a black eye, absolutely.
But, I think that'll about wrap it up. Unless you got anything else.
No. So just one other thing. Who's that like 6'7" QB out of like tiny college, middle of nowhere?
I don't know.
Do you remember his name?
I don't remember his name, but he'll go to Denver.
Dude, that dude put up some numbers. Like he was at, where was he at?
Buffalo?
He was at Auburn.
Buffalo.
He was somewhere, Arkansas maybe. He was at Arkansas as a freshman and maybe a sophomore, and he didn't do all that well in like limited opportunities. And then he transferred to a smaller school and just lit everybody up. And he has one of the funniest draft profiles I have ever read. Like it's just like this dude has a cannon. He's pretty mobile for a 6'7" guy. Oh, and he's got a bit of a gut.
Yeah, I remember I sent you a picture. I remember I sent you a picture during the combine. And I was like, future Denver quarterback.
Yeah, like just and if you can find this guy, Google him and just go to Google Images, and there's this picture of him in high school where he's like double the size of everyone around him, double the height.
It looks like the Andy Reid picture in the kick.
It's hysterical.
The kick, pass, and punt contest.
Yeah, absolutely does. But no, that was the last thing I wanted to mention. That dude's draft profile is incredible.
But all right, well, thanks everybody for listening. Big shout out to Chris Watt for coming on, giving us a piece of his time, and I guess we're just a Notre Dame podcast now until somebody else wants to come be our friend. Yeah, I mean Notre Dame all the way. We're the number one Notre Dame podcast in the world. It is now official. We're definitely the number one Notre Dame podcast hosted by two bald guys that sometimes talk NFL, NBA, and NCAA football and basketball sometimes. So
100%. Number one. Being first, your last.
Put it on a t-shirt.